Thank you, Melvin. My name is Kevin Koym. Welcome to today's VO Weekly, the Venture Outfitter Weekly. What is the Venture Outfitter all about? This is all about helping entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values see that they're provisioned for their ventures, because some of the ventures that our entrepreneurs are taking on are fairly out there, fairly aggressive, and we're going to have a particularly important topic today, following on some of the other stuff. I know that there's a handful of people that might be hopping in that said, "Hey, Kevin, I'm not going to be able to be here right at 11 o'clock Texas time," but they're going to be filing in because of the topic that we'll be tearing into today. So thank you for being here at the Venture Outfitter. Starting off, the people who make this possible, I want to make sure I say thank you to DualWorks for being a long-term sponsor of Tech Ranch. Linda Blackman, who started DualWorks, is actually one of our long-term technology entrepreneurs, all the way back from Venture Forth 17. We've had more than 45 cohorts of Venture Forth. She was involved early on, got her first business to a really successful level, and then came back. And when I was in the process of selling our co-working place, she said, "Hey, let me take that over for you." She bought that out, and it was really great. Make a long story short, that's actually where we came back to office as we're coming out of the pandemic. If you need a mailbox or something like that, all the way up to a closed door office, she's got you covered. So, and if you are interested, make sure you just send me or one of the team members a request, and we'll get you special pricing. One really serious thing, we're about to have another sponsor join, and I won't give you all the details of the sponsor, but there's some really interesting stuff happening. If you're in the solar industry, or if you have some program that impacts the whole value chain around solar, whether it's generation to consumption, perhaps something even for some of our entrepreneurs that are doing stuff in electric vehicles, we have an interesting thing emerging. I won't go into the details till next week, when I expect that we'll have everything finalized. But the deal is big enough that I want to make sure I start signaling that if you have something, there's a short-term turnaround opportunity to take advantage of that I want to make sure I'll tell you about. And I'd be happy to talk to anyone personally about this. Just drop me a note. But part of what's happening is we're now really actively putting together the pieces around the Venture Outfitter. And so because of that, I want to make sure that if you have something in the solar industry, especially if you're stateside, this is for US-based entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are moving into the States, are going to be doing US market entry, this is possible. I got a couple of questions this morning. Hey, is that guy that's doing the LinkedIn program going to be joining today? He's actually on vacation today, and we rescheduled this to September 30th. There was some stuff that happened in Chris's life. What he's going to be able to do is he's going to take us through the whole process of how do you use LinkedIn as your, how do you use LinkedIn to drive change and drive awareness. And so he'll go through that on the 30th. That is next week's program. Come ready with your questions, if at all possible. If you have questions beforehand, please send them to Chris, K-R-I-S, at techranchaustin.com, and he'll get them directly. And so you can make sure that anything that you'd like to ask as part of that he's able to tell you more about that part of LinkedIn. Pretty exciting, because in one little experiment that I did following his lead, I posted one video of about a minute and a half and got more than 1,100 views. And so it's definitely, there's a lot of power there, and I'm looking forward to the program myself and learning all about it. So part of what today is all about is connecting among the community. Now, we're going to have two parts of this. Part of today, we don't have a formal speaker. I wanted to do some follow-up based on what's been happening with around the network and things like that. I've gotten requests for follow-up back all the way about the Afghanistan questions and some of the things that happened in that program, all the way to one of our members topically challenged me And I don't think she's going to actually be on with us today, but I'm like, she affected one of our long-term technology entrepreneurs, actually, Joy Chevalier from Venture Forth 31. Posted something and said, hey, you should be talking about this as well. I'll tell you more about that. But first off, we're going to hear from a couple different people around the network. Anyone, since this is a community conversation, anyone can to weigh in. But Omar has been posting some interesting articles both on our network and in his LinkedIn. And I thought he might tell us a little bit of an update about what he's seeing out in the venture world and his take on a couple different things, including a recent, $700 million venture acquisition. Omar.
How's it going? Sorry if I thought my VO background was actually straight because it was looking backwards to me first and I switched it around, but now I just got a message that it looks backwards. So I'll fix that after I give my couple of minutes spiel. But yeah, recently I put a posting on LinkedIn about MailChimp's insane valuation and kind of recent acquisition, and the fact that they really were a bootstrap and one of the very few examples of a unicorn that was completely bootstrapped and really never went out to raise any venture capital throughout its history. And was just, again, another reminder that a lot of the heyday excitement around venture capital and the funds that have been raised and the amount of funds that continue to break records, so far, even just the first half of this year, I think we've broken again, the total amount of venture raised globally, the total amount of venture funds put together, the total amount of deals invested. And I think it's still a great thing. And I just, again, I want to reiterate that I'm not an enemy of venture capital. I actually am a fan of venture capital and I try to work with venture capitalists. But I also believe that, every business has its real true nature of funding requirements and growth opportunity and potential and planning. And I think businesses need to really just focus on what is their product, what is their product market fit, what is their roadmap to actually getting traction, because ultimately, even if you are eligible to raise venture capital and bring in new investors into your business, you still have to get traction because you have to return that money back to the investor. So the priority should always be the traction and how you're going to generate your product market fit and your actual sales. And I think businesses that really do hone in on that kind of thinking, more so than the how much money do I need and how can I go get that money, end up really creating a more long-term sustainable winning situation and business model, right? Versus just kind of a lot of the fads that, go around fundraising. And fundraising is, it's an endeavor. I mean, it's almost a full-time job on its own when, a founder wants to go out and raise capital, and it takes away from the focus of building a good product, of focusing on your customer, of understanding your product market fit. So, again, it's just, to me, sometimes when I see these things, I like to just send out those reminders and messages to, my community and my network, and, just make sure that people are thinking twice about things, just because they see headlines or they see kind of, activity in a certain area or sector or, modality of getting business done. There's good times to just rethink, what it is really that my business needs, right? So that's it, just kind of sharing, some insight, hopefully that, if anybody has any questions around kind of things related to raising money or venture capital, I'm always happy to talk about that stuff and kind of, explore with, you as a founder or as a business, what makes sense. I'm working with a few businesses now, both, internationally and domestically, on kind of their potential fundraising needs and figuring out what that looks like. So, happy to continue again, talking about that topic if anybody's interested.
Sounds great. Especially, I mean, I come from the school of bootstrapping, raising, using your own funds to actually get to the next stage myself. And the two, venture capital has gotten better than some of the scar tissue that, like, there were two of the ventures that I was on the founding team on, get into the venture. And then the formula, especially in the 90s, was, the venture capitalists, which were mainly finance guys at the time. There weren't as many venture capitalists that were true, entrepreneurs that became investors. And so part of the issue at hand is, it's a little rough cut, because their formula was, okay, get the founding team to get to a certain point and then fire them all and replace them with a management team. Thankfully, certain investors nowadays see that doesn't work as well. So It's that's why I always was such a big fan of bootstrapping. And then we see the success that Omar is pointing to about, a company like MailChimp doing so well. I think they got their company to $700 million and then, but sold it for 12 billion or something like that. So interesting to see. So thank you for that. Anyone else? I saw Susan, our director of our nonprofit, but it looks like she did. Susan, if you're still there, why don't you give us a report? You're coming back from vacation. Well, welcome back.
I am back from a lovely trip to London with my kiddo. I have seen half the museums in London, despite my best efforts. And yeah, I'm just getting my molecules reassembled.
Perfect. Well, welcome back. So you're in Texas, it looks like, just based on the scenery.
Porch. My amazing husband cleaned off the back porch and created a space for me out here. So now I can join the legions of people who join our meetings from lovely outside locations.
That sounds great. Yeah, Scott and you both for doing that today. That's great. Well, welcome home.
Thanks.
We've missed you and we've created all sorts of work for you, but we'll talk
Yeah,
about
no, I've been watching the email.
Perfect. Anyone else want to just report in? This is kind of the open part of the, just like if you have something to share really quick, we're going to have a topic that we're going to go into, but I want to just make sure that if there's anything that that the community would like to connect around really quick. Well, I'll tell you what, as a reminder, one of the things that that we always do is part of the conversations that are going on in our Slack channels and our Mighty Network. Take advantage of both. Depending on the topic area and stuff like that. And it's great to see all the scenery where people were in, like, let's see, I see Jorge, Scott, and Susan in the outdoors. Jorge's got his hand raised. Go ahead, Jorge.
I just want to let you know that from that lecture that you connect me, that was in Nigeria, I got a connection for the University of West Indies, and we're looking forward to have a connection in there to make a project. So thank you for that once again. That was surprising.
That's great to hear. I tell you what, make sure you send us a note about it so we can share, because one of the concepts I'm going to be talking about today during the presentation type speaks exactly about that. So thank you for the update, Jorge. And that's great to hear. All right, well, just from the standpoint of there is a business behind the Venture Outfitter and the Tech Ranch. We have many different business levels. I've already talked to you about this in the past. We're always going to have a free offering at the base of the pyramid where you can get involved in, you can come to these VO weekly calls. You can actually interact with the community. We'll bringing back our event called the Campfire. But at the network level, we have an increasing number of vendors that we've signed up for different offers for you. And because there's an administrative responsibility that the Tech Ranch has to those vendors, and therefore there's a cost involved in that, we are signing up people specifically for the network. And I would love to actually just give away everything for free, but the truth is that's not how you build a business. We'll continue to have the community level. One of the things that's happening is if you do sign up for the network, you'll get access to these special offers from the vendors. This includes places like Amazon Web Services and things like that. And why you might ask, hey, Amazon just gives it away for free. Well, the truth is that Tech Ranch has a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we review the ventures before we give you access to that $5,000 worth of network access and stuff like that they have, or perhaps some of the special things like every once in a while the Japanese government, as an example, for one of our companies called Monitor, well, kind of like what Jorge just mentioned, one of our companies called Monitor was in the network, and the Japanese government had a very specific select group of people that we were able to put in front of them. And now Francisco is in the process of talking to customers in Japan. So if you're outside of the US, our pricing on this is $990 a year for access to the network. If you're outside of the US, we will index that price according to the local economy, just because I just don't want financial differences between our countries, especially since what we have, like I mentioned earlier before off camera, we have Right now we have Haiti represented, Mexico represented, Russia indirectly represented, Egypt indirectly represented, several other places, Honduras represented. Because of that, I want to make sure that we have access to this. And if you go through and sign up, if you sign up for a year at that level, I will make sure that I personally take you through 2 programs as we're booting up the next level of the Venture Essentials program. Venture Essentials is the core of our gold standard program called Venture Forth, where we make sure we take you through the funding conversation, the lean canvas, the vision map, and the financials, as well as your elevator pitch. And so I can tell you more about that later. But that is your daily commercial about what makes this program go. So whether you're on right now or otherwise, please let us know. You can send an email at info@techranch.com. And if you don't already have my direct contact information, and we can get you that information so you can sign up. So switching gears, a few weeks ago, we talked about Kabul's international airports, and we had different people, join a conversation. Then we heard from Andrew Gardner a few weeks ago, who might join us. He's in the process of saving another group of people, but the group of people that were brought together, including myself and other elements of Tech Ranch, saved around 1,200 people out of getting them out of harm's way. You might remember that the VO Weekly calls were called Innovating the Vulnerable Out of Harm's Way. We had 2 of them. One of them that we were specifically talking about what was happening with the international airport and getting people that were as many people out as quickly as possible. That process that we're directly involved in, over 120,000 people got out of Kabul on the evacuation. The program that Tech Ranch and this one Tech Ranch member had put together got around 1,200 out. And that's what we heard. And if you haven't heard that whole story, you want to hear the whole thing. It's just amazing. It's amazing to hear. It's one of my favorite VO Weeklies ever, just because it truly had impact. And I think that that's real exciting. And part of what we exist for is so that we can actually have these tools and techniques, like in this case, digital health, have access to, refugees. There's lots of refugees going on right now, and there's a lot of crisis. It's expected to actually increase for a variety of different reasons, whether you believe in climate change or some of the other things. I think we're actually seeing a lot of unsettling things happening. And we, that is the group of people that hear my voice right now, we have a part in this, right? Because we can actually organize solid businesses with technology around solving solutions for these people and innovating them out of harm's way. This article was a great example that Elmar had actually shared with us on the network a few weeks ago. And but it actually points to what I want to remind us about. So one of the things that's been happening that didn't come out as good as I thought it would be, that there's something called an adhocracy. What is an adhocracy? It's a flexible, adaptable, and informal organizational structure without bureaucratic policies or procedures. What is this? What is this? So one of the things that I want to point to about what the VO Weekly, the Venture Outfitter, is all about is, for each one of you, you have a venture that you're leading. And the ventures that the entrepreneurs that we seem to pull for, that seem to show up in our network, are the ones that actually have some issue that they're really driving towards, something that they really care about, right? And it's not just about making money, and it's not just about doing some kind of business process, but having some type of impact. And one of the things that I think we can do is we can continue to build these adhocracies together. What is an adhocracy? Well, on this little map here, adhocracies can be assembled quickly. They can be assembled around different sets of needs and stuff like that. Whereas on the upper left, it says clan, which is, have a collaborative, like this is the family unit or some group of people. We have hierarchies, like our government is a hierarchy. There's a one person in charge of other people that are in charge of other people, in charge of other people. The lower left, we have markets. And, I believe in a market-based system, right? That's part of the basis of entrepreneurship. But But sometimes in the United States, and one of the things that I've benefited from getting to see the world is a lot of times the American mentality is we need to have a market for everything. And I actually think that that's valuable to have because you can get all this innovation around it. But the thing I want to point to for us, for the group of people that pay attention to the VO Weekly, is this notion of adhocracy. Because I think that I want to challenge the network as we're getting our production value up higher. That I think that there are a lot of people that don't believe that it's possible to change the world for the better without spending more money. And so I'm about to show you some images that are not pleasant. It probably will take me 3 minutes to get through the things I'm gonna share, because I want to actually say, you know what? I'm convinced more than ever before in working with entrepreneurs from 42 countries and 25 countries now, that we can do something with regards to what's happening with refugees, what's happening with immigrants. And I don't mean just throwing money at the thing. I actually think we could spend less money and create more care. But if you've listened to the news, especially over the last couple of days, you know about this. You know that in Texas, in Del Rio, there's been Texas migrants, there's trying to block the border. And in the picture that you see to the right, part of what's happening is we have some guy on horseback that in interdicting, Haitians that are coming across that border, it's now become a scandal, and as it should be, that he used his reins of his horse to whip one of those individuals. And now it happened wider than this. And the crazy thing about it, the thing I really want to point to is, I am convinced that more money is going to be spent on just cleaning up this mess, on cleaning up even just the PR mess, than it would have taken to put money in the hands of you entrepreneurs to solve this. And I want to talk about adhocracies and how we could actually be organizing about that. I want to push beyond just the Afghan situation that we had a few weeks ago, right? Andrew Gardner and a group of us that he assembled, one of our venture forthers, Andrew Gardner put together the people, and 1,200 people were saved. And that is miles and miles away. I can drive to Del Rio, though. I can drive to Del Rio in the tank of gas that I've got in the 4Runner right now. And so the fact that like an individual, like the guy on the horse, who's, by the way, controlled by a hierarchy, not an adhocracy, didn't see a different way of doing whatever he thinks he's doing than what he did. And I'm not going to blame him because, I don't think we should have open borders and things like that. But on the other side, there's got to be a better way. Because I'm convinced more money is being spent on cleaning up the mess than it would have taken for you guys, you entrepreneurs, to actually have solved part of it. So let's hear one more thing, though, because a lot of this has been underreported in several different parts of the US. And so I want to share with you about a 1.5-minute clip that goes even further. And hopefully you'll be able to hear the sound. If someone says that they can't hear the sound, please interrupt me because I screwed that up last time. And I want to make sure that we don't have that happen. This is video of what's happening. We're about to hear, you can see that people are being treated like cattle. And I don't think it has to be this way. And it's not about just opening the borders. And if you haven't seen some of the suffering, we're about to hear from this guy.
We're having a hard time. Our family sends us money, but we can't eat. We have children, but don't have diapers. Look, now I have to cross to the Mexican side with wet money to be able to buy things for the child, and we have nothing. We're unable to eat. I need help with everything that's happening to us over there because there are a lot of children, and they're only removing the single parents, and the children are left alone. Just imagine.
Yeah, no unfortunate historical context to those images.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a rough thing because, and the worst part about it is perhaps that guy on horseback, this is the only thing that he knows to do. You know, this might, which is part of the problem, by the way. I mean, first off, you shouldn't be threatening people with a horse. You shouldn't be threatening people anyway, because they're already traumatized for what's happening. Part of what I want to have a frank discussion about, though, is ideas about how we can do that. Now, I specifically reached out this morning to a couple different people I reached out over the last few days. One of the guys, I wanted to have Andrew come back, and he apologized about an hour ago via text, saying that there was something, because he gets pulled into these meetings around, where people's lives are on the line. He wasn't able to join. But the thing I wanted to do is to make sure that we get a chance to talk about it. We have a couple different people represented, including one of our very own Haitians who's in Captain Haiti. That's got some really innovative stuff. We also have a individual who has managed different issues about the Afghan situation that I'd like to hear from as well. And then I'd like to actually just say, how do we build an adhocracy so that the guy on the horseback and the organization that controls that happen to be paid for by my tax dollars can think beyond the crap that's happening. I don't think the answer is open borders, but I don't think it's certainly not what's happening right now. Who would like to actually lead part of this discussion? I see David coming off of mute.
Yes.
David,
hi,
please.
everyone. I'm going to try to be quick because also I apologize in advance. I have to leave in a couple of minutes. But I just wanted, actually, before you brought up this subject, there was something I was going to mention. You were talking about the influence in the Afghani situation. And this subject has been something that has been talked about here in Mexico, also in Monterrey, because not only what you're seeing from I believe it's called from the border, from the U.S. side, but also in Mexico, this has been a subject that has been talked about. And one of the concerns in my friends' WhatsApp groups and things like that, because also here in Monterrey, there's a lot of Haitians, right now they've been located here. I don't know if temporarily or they're on their way to the U.S. border or what. But the thing is that, for example, just to give you a very quick example, the local organizations that help immigrants are completely, surpassed in their capacity. We had a quick example. We had a strong storm this few days ago, and these people were out in the streets, and they put a couple of just really quick shelters, but it wasn't enough. So it's been a concern, and like I said, with friends and people, like, I mean, what is this something that can be done or not? Because again, like you mentioned, probably open borders won't be the solution. It can't be the solution for everything, right? But I do believe there's something else that, for example, with this amazing group that we have, could be done. So again, just wanted to just mention that this is something that is also being viewed from Mexico as what can we do. I think it's something that we, both the U.S., well, actually 3 countries, U.S., Asian, and Mexicans can come together and create something, of course, from people all over the world. But it's something that actually affects all 3 of our countries. So from the humanitarian perspective, I believe there's something that needs to be done. So I just want to bring this really quickly, and again, apologize. I do have to.
I know it's perfect. In fact, if you actually have examples, even if they're in Spanish, where it's writing about that, I'd like to actually have you share that.
Sure.
Same kind of thing. I was in 2019. Tech Ranch earlier in the year had signed an MOU with the state of Chihuahua. Chihuahua is one of the Mexican states between Texas and Mexico. Right. And I was in Juarez, and specifically one of the things that happened was, Mexico, interestingly enough, since I've seen it, since I was doing, I first did business there in the 90s, doing pretty good comparatively to where it was in the 90s. there's still difficulties, still struggles, there's still security, but not as much of a issue, especially in Chihuahua, because, there's only 3% unemployment. A lot of the people are underemployed, but still 3% unemployment, that's pretty good.
And just to close, I forgot to mention the numbers. They said there are around 7,000 Haitians in the Mexican side of the border with the US, and there are more coming. I'm guessing that the Haitians that are right now in Monterrey are on their way to Reynosa, and I don't know if Nuevo Laredo also, but it's going to be a big problem if we don't do something about it. And talking about all the different aspects that we need to help these people.
Exactly. Well, and the thing about it is, as we were talking about in the program for innovating the vulnerable out of the way, right? There's a way that we could actually build a different type of value chain to plug all these different startups into. I think part of the problem that's happening is we're using these large organization responses that are not able to be as creative about how they assemble stuff around it. But back to what I was actually talking about being in Chihuahua. It wasn't the Mexicans, it was the Hondurans that had faced similar type of issues that, like the unrest that was happening in Honduras was causing a lot of people to come from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. I'm just wondering, so I want to make sure that we expand the conversation where, this group of people, plus some that are not able to be on today, we're able to save 1,200 people out of, being probably shot. In that case, it's probably a little bit worse situation than what we're seeing on the border, but still on the border, still unacceptable. Who else would like to weigh in about this? Scott, Vladimir, I'd love to hear from both of you. And then Franz, I want you to be prepared in a little bit to share what you're doing to make it possible for Haitians to want to be able to stay.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I think what happened in the border, in the US border, it's something really huge. And then by now what I would like to say, it's our population fault. And then it's not our government, but it's all about our population, because when you're building a country, you have to care about objective plan, and then some of the people you're gonna put on the government also, because if you choose somebody who don't care about the population, they don't care about job creation, and then how these people can survive, because by now, according to the World Bank, we have like 77 people living on the $1 a day. And then I think by now it just why this happened is the question. Why this happened? Why all the people, Asian people, go on other country? Because we need them here. Why? Because of just one thing: job opportunity. They don't really have job opportunity. And then why we have here, we just want to create job for them. Sustainable job, not just something just
tell us a little bit about what is so I know what you do, but tell us what city you're in and what are you up to, Franz? Share a little bit about your work.
Okay, good. I am in Cap-Haïtien. I'm on the northern area, and then it's a huge and old city. We have a capacity like to receive people from, I can say, Labadie. It's a touristical area, and we have Citadel in the north area. We have a lot of tourism potential, and then also agriculture. And what I'm doing, I am an entrepreneur, and I had an opportunity to be a Young Leaders of America's initiative, a program that fully funded, created by Obama. and I think it was in 2015. I've been part of this program. I mean, this year it was virtual because of the COVID-19. Now, at the end of this program, I had an opportunity to meet different of people and then to see how I can really go forward with my business. What I'm doing with my business, it's a business incubator and accelerator. We created in 2017. Why we do create it is the same problem that we can. I just come to talk about job creation, and then also because we don't have a structure, business structure in Haiti. We have the lack of leadership also, but you just have a few people with a great, I can say, leadership level. And then
And just like, for the context of people that don't know, in the last few weeks, Haiti's president was assassinated, and then there was a 7.3 magnitude earthquake that happened in Haiti as well, which is a lot of people don't realize that first you have the political unrest of having the chief executive of the country being killed, followed on by very shortly thereafter a massive earthquake. 7.3 is nothing to that's a massive earthquake.
Didn't
So,
they also
Yeah,
get
exactly.
hit right after that by a tropical storm?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's
exactly. Then, but I think what happened now, it just, everything is about education, business education, and then and leadership also, because we have to start from the beginning, like educating young people with I can say, give them some good tools to create great opportunity for themselves. And then at that point, we can really say, okay, we have a great country. Because if you don't care about education, about business, because every time that will happen, people will leave country and then go to live on another country because they're looking for something great, a new way of life. I think what we're doing, just helping people. By now, we're developing different program to help people. I think we have a program like we start design to helping and then helping people living with disability after they have quit and the great stuff to help them integrate the society again. Because when they life they don't have job, and then they have one hand or one foot cut, but sometime in our country they don't really I can say that they just put them away. And then we create some great program for them in order to see how we can really reintegrate them in the society again, create great jobs for them also. We're gonna try to use the new technology, especially the cryptocurrency, to help them do something with their life again. For other people coming, like those they just try to I can say that put them here again because they arrest them on the border. And then we also have some great program for them. We're gonna help them to feel they are in the house, they are home. Just they are living just for opportunity. They're looking for job opportunity. They're looking for a better life. If we do have all those things to offer them, I think they're gonna stay.
Yeah, exactly. So I want you to talk a little bit about, or just say, what, you have 30 entrepreneurs you're working with right now? Tell us about
we have like we have more. By now we have more. We have an acceleration program that we start, we call it Booster. And then we try to give fund to them, not only give them the money, but if they need tools, we gonna buy the tools for them. And then we train them also. By now we have like 5 coming to our program. And then, as you know, the greatest challenge that we're facing now is just only funding. And then some also training for coach, and then for mentors also, because we about to build a community of mentors and coach in Haiti, and some great tools. That's why we we're looking for now. And then what we're doing with this 33 entrepreneur we already trained, because not all of them gonna be successful, because it's always something like that. But we try to do our best to save more than 20 of them, because go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and that's the picture that I want everyone to see out of what's represented by the adhocracy that is represented by this group of people, right? So Franz has already got 33 entrepreneurs that he's trained up. Obviously, each one of those businesses has a life of its own, and we hope for the best on each one of them to be successful. But the jobs that you created out of that then can create the longer term investments for education, things like that. Part of what I want to make sure I say, especially to my friends that are American taxpayers that are paying for all the repatriation flights and stuff like that, it's not about open borders, but I think if we actually went to the root and helped more entrepreneurs create more jobs, then we wouldn't have to pay what we paid at least $100 per person as they're flying back home. And plus the PR mess of what happened and things like that. Just think about the amount of dollars that are spent. There's billions of dollars that are actually being spent in the negative case on this, and the attention of the attention of the United States is on this embarrassment, something that shouldn't be happening. Versus, working with entrepreneurs like Franz. When Franz reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm this guy in Captain Haiti. I'd like to engage with you." I'm like, "Okay, I've got to do this. Because I know the power of our network to figure out things. Let's figure out how we can actually do stuff." I'd like to hear from a couple other people. Scott, you were sharing some notes about the situation around the Afghans, but I know you have an opinion because you sent the response that you sent to the email that I sent to you was this long. So please share.
Well, I certainly have opinions. So, one, this has been a fascinating conversation. And, I had some notes scribbled out for what I thought this conversation might look like that I don't know are entirely relevant. But, maybe framing this within broader conversations about refugees in this moment as represented by Haitians on the border, but Mexico or Central Americans as well, as, like we've seen this over the last 10 years, but really like the last several decades in the United States.
And I think it's perfectly fine for you to talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing with Afghans, so that people have a context. And even though one of the amazing things about innovation, right, is you figure something out in one part of the world, and then you can quickly replicate it. You don't have to localize it, but quickly replicate. Replicate the stuff that what's happening in that part of the world won't be exactly the same of what's needed on the border right now. Or, I was just in the Dominican Republic 2 weeks ago, which is Dominican Republic and Haiti share the same island of Hispaniola. And, the DR is actually the Dominican Republic is facing some difficult situations as well because of the Haitian migrants that have migrated to that part of the island. So that being said, tell us about your background. I know your background, but I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about who you are, so people have a little bit of a context about the story you're going to share.
So my background quickly, first job out of college was working President Obama's first campaign. And then also ended up working his second. So worked both of those campaigns. Following his first and his second campaign, I was in DC working in foreign policy. There are a couple issue areas that I worked on, but what took the bulk of my time initially, and then all of my time, my second round through DC, was a focus on Afghanistan, and specifically looking at how the United States ends conflict, and then related to that, what responsibility we have to the people in countries where we engage. And that, again, I think links directly to questions relating to development, refugees and similar, and what we were just discussing. And then got fairly burned out on DC itself, but to a larger degree, working within an enormous institution or next to an enormous institution like the US government. It's an environment where the goal often is not to succeed. The goal is to avoid failure. And that is true for elected officials who never win an election because they do something right, but will lose an election because they do something wrong and or something just goes wrong that they end up having to hold the bag for. And then that trickles down to I think through most parts of US government infrastructure as well, including USAID, which, has a budget of roughly $30 billion a year that is spent, assisting is the idea. I think sometimes often maybe we do more harm than good, but whose goal and mission is to be working with populations and or governments around the world to improve living conditions, to improve, government stability, or whatever the case may be. It depends which pot of money you're looking at within USAID. And I spent the last 6 years in Austin working in tech. That being said, I stepped out over the summer to start working on Afghanistan again, as it became clear what the US's withdrawal from Afghanistan was going to look like, and specifically that it was, again, in my opinion, and this can be a very complex conversation that I can get on both sides of, but that we were withdrawing far too quickly, largely for political reasons, and in a way that was guaranteed to lead to the collapse of the Afghan government, in the process putting the entire country of Afghanistan, but specifically Afghans who had chosen to take the US at our word and who had worked with us over the last 20 years, in immense danger. And so, those are the translators and their families who Operation Dunkirk largely ended up working with. Those are, hundreds of thousands of journalists or female teachers or women that just went to school and now are dentists or have a business and work outside of the home, who were either going to be specifically targeted by the Taliban as they came in, and or were going to go back to living in a reality where they effectively, frankly, almost in a Stone Age approach to societal organization in terms of the opportunities that were there for people economically, but also from a social or a human rights perspective. So all of that framing, I think this conversation is an interesting one, because when it comes down to it, what any country needs to have a chance to succeed with business or otherwise is stability. And for humans living within that country, security is the first question. And so the first question is always, am I physically secure? And then on top of the physical security, that's where you start getting into opportunity and thinking about economic security or economic opportunity. Do I have enough to eat? Whatever the case may be. And so, what we were talking about, Kevin, Monday evening, and then the email I sent back to you as well, is it's truly been inspiring to watch the American people effectively step up as, what we're calling Afghan evacuations, or this Afghan refugee crisis took hold. And it's really been amazing. Operation Dunkirk is a fantastic example of what people are capable of when they work together and they respond to need. But at the same time, I think what often gets lost in the shuffle is that the United States at a high level created this crisis. Singularly were responsible for what we saw happen. And it's amazing the American people stepped up to help other humans in Afghanistan who were seeking to escape. But, and again, there's nuance to this statement that we can get into. It's not necessarily true the way I'm about to say it, but we chose to make this happen because President Biden really thought the war needed to end. Although I think the concept of ending a war is often a false one, because if we leave somewhere, we create a security vacuum, which leaves a crisis in our wake. 1, 2, I think there is political motivation. Polling said it was a winner to end the war in Afghanistan, and it felt like a quick win. And historically, US citizens don't hold our politicians accountable largely for foreign policy mistakes. George Bush was elected to a second term, as one example of that, following going into Iraq. And the White House thought there wouldn't be any political consequences for quickly leaving Afghanistan, though they did not anticipate the country would fail quite as quickly as it did. And then a third piece of that being that, I feel strongly that I don't think the US is a force for good in the world. I don't think we are directly and singularly a force for evil in the world. We're capable of both. We're capable of positive and negatives. We can do good in a terrible situation, and we can do wrong by trying to do the right thing. I think that's true for the US. It's also true for any other nation state or any other institution of any sort. What's different about the United States is that this is changing, but we have been the singular power in the world, both economically and military. I think you could argue at this point we're now one of two alongside China. But with that position comes immense responsibility. And that responsibility is to our values, or at least the values that we say that we have and that we seek to maintain. And that responsibility is to people around the rest of the world and countries around the rest of the world as well. And we can be a positive force or a stabilizing force as the most powerful country in the world. And we can get into examples of where that's the case. We can also be a deeply destabilizing or violent or negative force as we seek to do same in countries around the world. In many ways, that's looking at, internal US politics, or, the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, that we all have it within us internally, that also sits on the shoulder of us as a nation and the individuals who sit at the highest level of government, who have so much power, but in the end are people just like us. Really long conversations. Like, coming back to Afghanistan, I'm actually coming back to your concept of adhocracy. Adhocracies, generally speaking, don't scale. And that is, I think, why government has so much trouble specifically working with ad hoc organizations, one. Two, the language of government does not understand the language of entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are driven to succeed, and failing is viewed as almost a positive part of that process. How can you ever figure out the solution to a problem if you're not failing first and failing often? Because innovation takes iteration, and iteration means that you learn from your failures. Government is set up to never fail. And so processes instead of outcomes are often measured. Because if you do everything right, even if you fail, it's not your fault. It's why you hire Deloitte. It's why you hire IBM. You're covering your own ass in a sense. That's how government's built to work. But scale doesn't necessarily work. I think from a dollar-to-dollar basis or from an impact basis, adhocracies, smaller organizations of individual people, are always going to have the most impact. And, for me, having largely, except for this moment, like stepped out of the government world, I think, Operation Dunkirk is an example, or frankly, this call, Kevin, I haven't been a part of this, but it's a really inspiring example of the types of questions we should be asking here in the United States, but with community members all over the world, in terms of how can we address some of the fundamental questions that government struggles so much with. Questions related to security, questions related to creating opportunity, questions related to how national or international systems and structures and institutions work. And then, there's always consequence. Like the Haitian, going back to the Haitian question right now, we saw that president was assassinated and there is an earthquake in the last month or 6 weeks now, but most of the Haitians on our border right now left Haiti after an earthquake in 2010. And they went to South America and largely found jobs leading up to the Olympics in Brazil. And then when all of those job opportunities disappeared following the Olympics, largely have been making their way north towards the United States since then, some of them finding opportunity on the way, many not. And so this feels like this is a crisis that just exploded on our border. But again, it's been a very slow moving process born from governance failures in Haiti. Although I would say, I think, arguably often not Haiti's fault. There's a long history of, I think, Haiti being victimized by initially other colonial powers, but more recently just other regional powers, until it explodes into the headlines right now. But as we all know, like headlines are fleeting as well.
Yeah, no, there's always a
that was a long talk. I'm sorry, by the way. I will.
No, it's perfect, because I'm listening in because part of the thing that I think is going to happen out of this, right, is there's another project that's not directly related to this, but I think that we're going to talk about, and within the next 4 weeks, that starts to talk about how is it we can build this platform, right? This external platform that solves some of these problems. And that platform, I'll tell you guys more about in the coming weeks. So I'll make sure that this one's more announced, because it's a big deal about what's happening. And it starts to, when I saw it, when I got the phone call that said, hey, Kevin, we'd like you and the Tech Ranch to play around with what might be possible in this one case. I'm like, that, Buckminster Fuller says it this way. He's one of my heroes. He says, don't fight the system, make a new system and make the first system obsolete. And there's a way of doing that. I think if I was to really And since we're coming to the end of our period of time, and since it's already been an hour and all that stuff, I won't go too much longer, but I'll just say this, that I think that American exceptionalism, it's time for it to come back. It's time for it to come back. And I think that the American and also the rest of the world entrepreneurs are part of where that can come from. And I don't think that we've actually really been thinking at scale, because, you know, to Scott's point, adhocracies historically, you know, you can't scale at certain levels. But when you realize that just the sheer thousands of people that were just saved out of Afghanistan, just because a handful of vets and a few entrepreneurs and a few people got together, assembled some stuff, and then did some interesting things, then you really start to see, okay, wait, the world has changed, right? This is one of my biggest points for last week's program, was the world's changed. The world's changed. We're not used to a world that had cryptocurrency in it and crypto tokens and you know, ubiquitous access to mobile technology and conversations where we have, you know, what on this one thing, at least let's see, at least 7 or 8 other countries represented, right? Where we can actually have, if you want to solve really complex issues, part of the way you do it is you get a very large heterogeneous solution set. Okay, so right now we have, you know, a guy in Mexico, there's an entrepreneur from Egypt, an entrepreneur from Honduras, you know, a guy who's been involved in Afghanistan, we have a Russian American, we have, you know, a Marine that actually used to work in a lot of these embassies around the world. We have our nonprofit director who just got back from London, and we have, you know, our entrepreneur on the ground in Captain Haiti, who's got 33 other people building those jobs. I just want to make sure I keep on presencing that. Part of what's going to happen out of this, the thing that happened with the conversation that we had with the minister from El Salvador was it opened up opportunities. For those of y'all that don't know, 4 weeks ago or so, I was in El Salvador, and I had a conversation with the minister of innovation and technology of that country. And part of the picture that we look at is, you know, what are they up to? What are they in the process? They've got an experiment going on with Bitcoin and some other stuff happening there. You know, 2 weeks ago in the Dominican Republic, right next to Haiti. We've got these different things that are happening. Main thing I'm just trying to say is there's a possibility of having something emerge out of this that'll come out of just the video itself. I mean, even just the conversation we've had. One of the most powerful things is not that I'm personally starting to learn how to do is the conversations that we have that start to get people to visualize what's possible. The one around the Afghans, and you know, of about 3 weeks ago, the one from El Salvador 2 weeks before that, this one, we can actually start to do some really powerful things. I want to make sure that I try to keep us to an hour because of the commitments that we all have for our days. One of the things that we're really I'm really proud of what Chris and the team is doing on our newsletters. If you would like to be on our newsletter list, we just had a really great newsletter that came out this last week, talking about, you know, innovating the vulnerable out of harm's way. And part of what you can do to hear some of those stories, since you know, where you can just read the clips and, you know, not have to go through everything, make sure you're on our email list. Even if you think that I might have added you to the email list, you should sign yourself up just in case, because sometimes I personally miss getting different people on the email list. And so go to techranch.com/connect, put yourself on the email list, and we'll go from there. Just in wrapping up, thanks again to DualWorks for being one of the first advertisers for the VO Weekly calls, and appreciate that. In the chat session, we're having a couple different people that's saying they got to go, but then Vladimir, our entrepreneur from Honduras that's joined us, just said, you know, adding education and job opportunities are key. We'll make sure that we focus more on that and some of the things that are happening. And in the next 4 weeks, within 4 weeks, we'll announce this new sponsor. We'll also announce this new platform that I think has part of the answer to what we're talking about. So for this group of entrepreneurs driven by vision and values, I'm excited to be here with you guys. It's my honor to get to be a part of this. I'm getting real excited about what's happening. You know, since we really started changing these things out and with some of your coaching and pushing these ideas and then saying, hey, guess what? Like when Andrew talked about the 1,200 people saved, I'm like, oh, that's exactly why we're up to this. And, you know, building the businesses that enable that sort of stuff to be possible. That's what we're here for. So for the entrepreneurs driven by values and vision, let's work together. Let's go change the world for the better together. All right, with that, we'll call it a day for today.